The morning began like any other in our small compound in Lagos. The sun had barely risen, its rays struggling to pierce through the mist that clung stubbornly to the air. Birds chirped lazily from the neem tree outside my window, and the smell of akara frying drifted in from the roadside vendor. Yet beneath this seemingly ordinary day, something was boiling inside my mother, something that would soon spill out in a way I never imagined. "Pack your things," she shouted, her voice slicing through the thin walls of our two-room apartment. For a moment, I froze. My pen stopped mid-scribble on the page of my notebook. I had been revising for my final exams, the kind that could determine whether I'd escape the cycle of poverty and land a scholarship to university. But her voice was laced with such fury that the words on the page blurred before my eyes. I stepped into the narrow corridor. My mother stood there, hands trembling, her wrapper tied carelessly as though she hadn't dressed with intention, her face hardened with a kind of rage I had not seen before. Her eyes were bloodshot, not from tears, but from exhaustion and suppressed anger. "Did you not hear me?" I said. "Pack your things," she repeated, jabbing her finger toward my room. The neighbors stirred, their ears no doubt straining to catch every word. In a place where the walls were thin and gossip traveled faster than the harmattan wind, nothing remained private. "Ma, what did I do?" My voice cracked, not from guilt but from fear. "You want to disgrace me? You think you're grown because you've started paying bills? You want to control this house?" The words hit me like a slap. It was true, I had been paying most of the bills for the past 6 months. Electricity, water, even groceries when I could. My small job as a cashier at a supermarket, coupled with the tutoring I gave to neighborhood children, helped me cover things my parents no longer could. But I never saw it as disrespect. I thought I was helping the family survive. Apparently, my mother saw it differently. "Since you're the one keeping this roof over our head, ABI," she spat. "Then go. Go and carry your independence to wherever you please. Leave my house." My heart hammered in my chest. Leave? Where would I go? I had no savings to rent my own place, no relatives in Lagos willing to take me in. And yet, something inside me, an ember that had been quietly burning, flared. I went back to my room silently. My hands shook as I pulled my small suitcase from under the bed. The smell of dust filled my nose as I opened it and began folding my clothes. Each shirt, each skirt, each worn pair of jeans felt heavier than it should. My chest tightened with every movement. But as I packed, another thought crept in. One that grew sharper, darker, and strangely empowering. If I left, what would happen to the family? Who would pay the bills? Who would ensure the lights stayed on? Who would make sure there was rice in the cupboard? For months, my parents had grown comfortable leaning on me. My father spent most evenings at the bar drinking away the little he earned as a mechanic. My mother sold vegetables in the market but claimed her profits were too little to contribute. They quarreled often, blaming the economy, blaming bad luck, blaming each other. Yet when I quietly stepped in with my meager earnings, they accepted it without question. But today, my mother's words opened my eyes. They didn't see my efforts as sacrifice. They saw it as pride. They saw me as a child trying to outshine them. So, as I zipped up my bag, I made a decision. A decision that felt like both revenge and liberation. I reached for my phone and opened the banking app. The autopay settings for the electricity and water bills appeared on the screen. My thumb hovered for a moment, my breath shallow. Then I canceled them. One by one. The sense of finality hit me like a drumbeat. If they wanted me gone, then I would leave everything behind, including the financial lifeline I had quietly provided. I walked back into the corridor with my suitcase. My mother stood there, arms folded, lips pressed tightly together. Her anger was cooling into something else, stubbornness mixed with wounded pride. "I'm going," I said quietly. Her eyes flickered, but she didn't speak. The sun was higher now, its heat pressing down on the tin roofs of the compound. I could feel the neighbors' stares as I dragged my suitcase down the uneven steps, their whispers floating like smoke in the air. I didn't look back. The first night away was the hardest. I stayed with a friend from the supermarket, Ifeoma, who shared a small room with her cousin. The floor was hard, the air hot and stifling, but at least I wasn't outside. Days turned into weeks. I split shifts at the supermarket and tutoring, scraping by while trying to prepare for my exams. Yet I couldn't stop thinking about home. Were the lights still on? Were they eating? Were they struggling? One evening, curiosity got the better of me. I passed by our compound, standing at the edge of the street where shadows cloaked me. The house looked darker than usual. A neighbor's generator buzzed nearby, but ours was silent. The windows of our flat were lit only by a small kerosene lamp. My mother sat outside on a plastic chair, fanning herself, her face weary. My father wasn't around. A pang of guilt stabbed me. But so did a strange sense of justice. I slipped away unnoticed, my thoughts a tangled mess. The real storm came a month later. I was walking home from work when my younger brother, Chuka, found me. His uniform was dirty, his face streaked with sweat and frustration. "Sis, you have to come back," he said breathlessly. "Everything is falling apart. They cut the light. We fetch water from far. Papa fights every day. Mama is sick with worry. Please, come." My chest tightened. Chuka was only 15. Too young to bear this kind of burden. His eyes pleaded with me, wide and desperate. But I remembered my mother's words. "Leave my house." "Chuka," I said softly, "I can't just come back like nothing happened. They need to understand what they did." His voice cracked. "But we are all suffering. Even me." I pulled him into a hug, my tears dampening his shirt. I wanted to fix everything, but I also wanted my parents to learn, to value me not as a child with money but as a daughter with worth. That night, I lay awake staring at the cracked ceiling of Ifeoma's room. The weight of my decision pressed heavily on me. Independence felt bitter when it came with the cost of family. Yet I knew one thing, I couldn't go back easily. Not unless they called me, not in anger, not in pride, but in humility. And deep down, I wondered, would that day ever come? The days dragged on, and whispers reached me through neighbors. The landlord had come threatening eviction. My father had borrowed money but couldn't pay it back. My mother fell ill more often, stress etched into her face. And I, their daughter, was on the outside, torn between resentment and compassion. Little did I know, the choices I made that day, the suitcase, the cancelled autopay, the silent departure, would set off a chain of events none of us could escape. Because sometimes, when you walk away from home, home begins to unravel in ways you can never predict. And the unraveling had only just begun. The unraveling came faster than I expected. 2 weeks after Chuka had begged me to return, word spread across the neighborhood that the landlord had finally locked the front door of our apartment. My parents and brother had been forced to squeeze into my mother's stall at the market for the night. Neighbors whispered about how shameful it was that a whole family could be driven out because of unpaid bills. I wanted to rush there, to help, but pride held me back. Pride, and the memory of my mother's sharp voice, "Pack your things." Yet my heart ached for Chuka. I imagined him trying to do homework by the dim glow of a kerosene lantern, his books smelling of smoke, his uniform unwashed. He was a boy with potential, brighter than I had ever been, and now his future was being strangled by the consequences of choices none of us fully understood. One evening, Ifeoma shook her head as she placed a steaming plate of jollof rice in front of me. "Adiz," she said, her brows knitted in concern, "how long will you stay angry? You know your mother, she speaks from pain, not always sense. But you too, revenge with autopay? That one was too harsh." I sighed, stirring the rice without eating. It wasn't revenge. It was teaching them to value me. "Value you?" she scoffed gently. Now everybody is suffering. Even small Chuka. Is that the kind of value you want? Her words pierced deeper than she knew. The next morning, I gathered courage and went back to the market. My mother was there, her stall nearly empty of vegetables. Her skin looked dull, her shoulders slumped, and when she coughed, it was deep and raspy. She barely noticed me at first, her eyes fixed on the ground. "Mama," I whispered, standing in front of her. She looked up slowly. The fire in her eyes was gone, replaced by something hollow. For the first time in my life, my mother looked small. "Adiz," she said, her voice weak. "So you finally remembered us?" I knelt beside her, shame flooding my chest. "Mama, I thought you wanted me gone." Her lips trembled. I was angry. I was tired. "But you left us to suffer." Tears blurred my vision. For weeks, I had replayed her words as justification for my absence. But here, seeing her fragile body and hearing the faint crack in her voice, I realized something terrifying. I had become just like her. Too proud to bend, too hurt to forgive. "Mama," I said, clutching her hand. "I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I only wanted you and Papa to see me differently, not just as a child, but as someone who helps. Someone who matters." Her eyes softened, though sadness lingered there. "You matter, Adiz. Even before money. I didn't know how to show it. I thought you wanted to replace us." The words hit hard. Replace them? I had only wanted to support them, not take over. But in my silence, in my anger, I had let them believe otherwise. As we sat there in the hot market sun, surrounded by the smell of onions and sweat, I knew the story of our family was at a breaking point. If I didn't make a choice now, we might never heal. But healing would require more than tears. It would require facing my father, facing the debts, and facing the truth we had all avoided. And I wasn't sure if I was ready for what the truth would uncover. That evening, I returned with Mama to the shuttered apartment. The padlock still dangled on the landlord's door, mocking us. My father sat on a wooden stool outside, a bottle of cheap gin beside him. His face was lined with frustration, his eyes bloodshot not just from drink but from shame. When he saw me, his brows furrowed. "So you finally showed your face. Have you come to laugh at us?" I swallowed hard. "Papa, no. I came to talk." He let out a bitter chuckle. "Talk? You left us in darkness. Your mother nearly fainted last week. Chuka hasn't eaten well in days. And you say you want to talk?" His words stung, but I forced myself to remain calm. For years, I had been afraid of my father's temper, but tonight, something inside me stood firm. "Papa," I said steadily, "I was paying the bills. Quietly. Carrying burdens that were not mine alone. But when Mama shouted at me to leave, you said nothing. You let me go. Why, Papa? Why did you never defend me?" Silence fell. The neighbors who had gathered nearby shifted uncomfortably, their curiosity mixing with pity. My father's lips moved, but no words came out at first. Finally, he spoke, his voice lower than I'd ever heard. "Because it hurt my pride," he muttered. "How can a man sit in his own house and watch his child pay for everything? What kind of father am I then?" The truth hit like a slap. It wasn't that he didn't care, it was that caring felt like weakness to him. I took a deep breath. "Papa, pride cannot feed us. Pride cannot pay rent. Pride cannot raise Chuka. If we keep letting pride rule, we will lose everything, even each other." My mother nodded weakly beside me, tears spilling down her cheeks. For once, she didn't argue. She didn't shout. She simply reached for my father's arm, her grip trembling but firm. "Obi," she whispered, "our daughter is right. We have been blind. We thought she wanted to shame us, but she only wanted to save us. We pushed her away, and look where it brought us. For a moment, my father looked like a man caught between two worlds, the old one where fathers never admitted weakness, and a new one where silence could destroy a family. His shoulders sagged, and he buried his face in his hands. "Forgive me," he said hoarsely. "Forgive us." My throat tightened. I had dreamed of this moment, but standing there, I realized forgiveness wasn't a single word, it was a choice that would require effort every day. I stepped closer. "Papa, Mama. I will help again. But it cannot be only me. We must all carry this together. No more secrets, no more pride." Chuka appeared from behind the neighbors, his eyes bright with relief. He rushed forward, hugging me tightly. "Please come home, sis. Don't leave again." And in that embrace, I felt something loosen inside me. We moved back into the apartment a week later after Mama and Papa spoke with the landlord and promised repayment. I restored the autopay for the bills, but not before sitting with both of them to agree on how everyone would contribute. My father began taking more jobs at the workshop. Mama returned to her stall with renewed determination. And I learned that independence did not mean cutting ties, it meant knowing when to stand firm and when to bend. Sometimes, the greatest battles are not with the world outside, but with the pride and silence within a family. And sometimes, the act of leaving is not as powerful as the act of returning, not in weakness, but in strength. Because at the end of it all, family is not about who provides the most, but about who is willing to grow, to forgive, and to fight for each other when everything seems lost. And that is a lesson I will never forget.